Hi everybody, welcome back to English 221. This is for our class for Wednesday, the 27th, where we are transitioning from Macbeth and moving into Othello. So you remember I indicated that you could take a bit of extra time with submitting in your Macbeth journal. So you have up until today, which is Wednesday the 27th, if you're watching this on the 27th, 11:59 p.m. if you haven't already submitted in your journal for Macbeth. And I will, of course, return that back to you the way I have with the other journals, meaning that you would have one last journal left for the semester because we've got one last major play left for the semester. That would be for Othello. And this also leads us to talking about the final examination. That our final exam, if we were meeting in person, we would be taking it on May 16th, which is Monday at 8 a.m. That's the time the college would have chosen. So that's the time in which I'm going to be posting our examination online. If we were taking the exam in person, you'd have 2 hours. But since we aren't taking the exam in person, I will give you 24 hours, meaning that I will post the exam on May 16th at 8 a.m. and it will be due by May 17th, which is Tuesday at 8 a.m. You can see this in the notes below. And although you have 24 hours to take the examination, I don't anticipate nor expect that you would be spending 24 hours writing the exam. So approximately 2 hours or so. It will be a series of essay questions where I can ask you to choose within those options, as well as some passages that I will ask you to explicate or to analyze, to talk about the language and the construction of those passages. It will be open book, open notes. So it's not the kind of examination where you need to memorize everything. Basically, if you've been coming to the classes or watching the videos, I should say, and you've been reading the plays and you've been doing the assignments, it's just a way for you to synthesize during the final everything that we've talked about thus far. And I don't expect, again, for the exam to be anywhere nearly as sophisticated as something you would do at home. Because, again, it's within a short amount of time. But I'm just looking for a way for you to find a way to put together all the pieces that we've been talking about over the course of this semester. And one of the things that you will also be doing before the final examination is handing in your second paper, which will be very similar to paper number 1, which was approximately 4 to 5 pages, a critical paper where you were analyzing a theme or an idea in probably one of the comedies, Midsummer Night's Dream or Much Ado About Nothing. You would be doing the same with your second paper, approximately 4 to 5 pages, critical paper, but you would probably be talking about either the history play, which is Richard II, or one of the 2 tragedies, Macbeth, which we've just put closure to, or Othello. That said, we will end the semester with talking briefly about The Tempest, which is a tragic comedy, and if it turns out that you wanted to write on The Tempest, even though we haven't necessarily devoted class time to it in the way we have to the other plays, that's also another option. Just like with the first paper, the sonnets were an option, even though they weren't technically dramas, but they still provided opportunity for reflection and analysis if you so wanted to proceed in that way. And obviously, because the second paper is going to be due May 16th, Monday by 8 a.m., there wouldn't be an opportunity to revise. And notice that that paper would be due right before the final examination so that you can devote the entire 24 hours to thinking about the final and not worrying about any papers or outstanding assignments. That would also be the date in which you would have to submit in any revisions for paper number 1, if you so did any, on May 16th, Monday, 8 a.m. Remember, you would have to hand in the original graded copy with my comments along with your revision. But you're not required to revise. That's something that you can decide for yourself, unless I've given you specific instructions that you need to revise a particular paper. So in terms of thinking about Othello, which is going to be our last major play, as I had indicated, it's got a good number of parallels with Much Ado About Nothing. So in some ways, it is a familiar play, even though we may not necessarily have discussed it or read it up until this point. You can expect a tragic ending, however, rather than a comedic or a happy ending, because we are in the tragedy section. Iago, Shakespeare's villain, has been called Shakespeare's most consummate villain. We'll see whether or not you agree or disagree with that assessment after you finish reading Othello, but I can definitely tell you that Iago is much more villainous than Don John could ever be, in Much Ado About Nothing. And Othello has also been called Shakespeare's most disturbing tragedy. And we'll see whether or not you agree or disagree with that assessment, even though we would have read only 2 tragedies over the course of the semester. But one of the reasons why Othello has been called so disturbing, because it's a play of the bedroom, not the stateroom. So this is less about the political dynamics of the world and more about the domestic dynamics within the home. So I think that it's something that we might have a closer connection with. In many ways, this play is contemporary. I've been trying to argue with you that all of the plays that we've been reading are contemporary, but this one in particular, because it talks about what we oftentimes call the isms, racism and sexism, and the idea of discrimination and othering. There is also an element of domestic violence in this play, so I just wanted to give you a trigger warning about that as well. And it happens to be about Othello, who is a Moor, and a Moor is a member of Northwestern African Muslim descent. And basically, he's dark-skinned. In other words, he's black. And he ends up marrying the fair Desdemona, who is quite Caucasian. And we see the fallout that results from that union over the course of the play. Again, I don't think I'm giving away too much to let you know that it does not end well. Now, Othello in the past, in terms of performances, was oftentimes performed with a Caucasian actor playing Othello with makeup or even blackface. And you can see that in the notes below. I've given you some clips for you to view from past Othello performances, very famous ones, where Caucasian actors played the title role of Othello. Laurence Olivier, his version in 1965, which was very esteemed. Orson Welles, his version from 1952, and also the BBC version. Remember, we've talked about BBC before and how accurate those productions are in terms of the text itself. And there we see Anthony Hopkins actually playing Othello. You can see that you've got brief trailers to watch for each of these. More recent performances have been more naturalistic, and they've cast black actors as Othello. And I've given you some clips to watch as well. The Globe on Screen, remember we had talked about that when we talked about Midsummer Night's Dream. Their version of Othello, and there's a brief trailer for you to watch. That's from 2008. And then, of course, Kenneth Branagh's Hollywood version of Othello. We talked about Kenneth Branagh before when we talked about Much Ado About Nothing. His version came out in 1995, and there's a brief trailer for you to see. Even the actor James Earl Jones, who's so known for his vocals, he did a brief speech of Othello in 2009 at the White House, actually, in a performance of an evening of poetry, music, and the spoken word. So you can see that that is a 6-minute performance that I'm asking you to watch. So basically today we're doing a piecemeal approach to watching clips of Othello. And then in terms of thinking about performance, I wanted to talk about audio. Thus far, we've been talking about actual visual performance. But one of the great ways to study Shakespeare is to focus on an audio version, particularly a good audio version, which allows you to read along as you are actually reading the text itself. I can say that this is the way that I proceeded myself as an undergraduate. And probably one of the best audio adaptations of Shakespeare's plays, and they've done all of Shakespeare's plays, is the Archangel audio adaptations, which I was luckily able to find online on YouTube. YouTube is a wonderful thing. So I thought that for this final production, or this final play, what we would watch is an audio, or listen to, I should say, an audio production, rather than watch a video production, so that you could read along. And you can see that I'm asking you to watch from Act 1, Scene 1, or I should say listen to, I'm sorry, old habits die hard. Act 1, Scene 1 to Act 2, Scene 1. So that would get you into approximately 36 minutes and 17 seconds of the performance. Then we could revisit that over the next couple classes. So the attendance question for this upcoming class, because you've got quite a few clips to watch, as well as quite a bit of audio to listen to. The attendance question, which will be due on our class discussion forum by Friday, the 29th at 8 a.m. And again, if you need additional time, please let me know. So far, based on the first half hour or so that you would have listened to the audio version of Othello, do you think you like or dislike the Archangel audio of Othello, and why? Again, listening to audio is a very different kind of experience than watching performance. And again, I encourage you to not just listen to the audio, but to read along with your text as you are listening. So I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. And next class, we will continue with Othello, Shakespeare's perhaps most disturbing tragedy. Bye-bye.